website. Hugh Edwards will be here with all the latest at 10. But from all of us here on the 6th, goodbye.
Tonight in London and the South East. Get your spring booster now. The NHS urges those eligible to get their latest COVID jab. As one doctor warns, the dangers have not gone away.
Some of those people are getting long COVID. Some of those people are the clinically vulnerable who will get extremely unwell and hospitalised with it. So it's still a problem for us.
We'll be speaking to a senior clinical advisor to the COVID-19 vaccination rollout, also on the programme.
Ahead of West Ham's Cup final this evening in Prague, I've come to the Olympic Park to speak with fans about how they're feeling ahead of the big game.
After being gutted by fire more than 20 years ago, Sheerness Dockyard Church reopens. Plus, comedian and writer Ben Elton takes centre stage in his own hit musical, We Will Rock You. Welcome to the programme. I'm Miranda Schunke. The NHS is urging more people to get their spring COVID booster jab before the deadline at the end of the month. It comes as new data shows of those eligible for the booster, just over 60% had received the jab in the South East, while in London that figure is lower at 40%. NHS England believes more than 800,000 people could still come forward for the booster, as Layla Hayes reports.
At the height of the pandemic, there were long queues for the COVID vaccine. Now things are very different. At this surgery in East London, more than 60 people booked to get a COVID jab today. But take-up for the spring booster across London and the South East is far lower than expected.
Those eligible for the spring booster include elderly care home residents, anyone over the age of 75, and those who are extremely clinically vulnerable. But they only have until the 30th of June to get it.
It's going to be a sharp scratch, okay? Ready to go?
Yep.
NHS England is now urging anyone who is eligible to come forward.
Was it important for you to come and have this today?
Well, at my age, you can't afford to take chances.
I think, it's important that to get the booster, especially, people who, they're like myself, who've got weak immune system, to show that, we're still protected in the long run.
I was sort of wondering whether I should go for this one again. If it's really having any effect, you don't know. But I thought, well, why not?
Doctors here say the booster will save lives.
People are still getting COVID, and as we know with viruses evolve, and that's what the booster's really about. It's about topping up your immunity to protect you from COVID, and also if you do get COVID, it won't be as severe.
But there are fears that some people are no longer worried about the virus.
I am concerned about the low uptake. I think perhaps we've all become complacent and dearly wish for the truly post-pandemic phase when we can forget about this thing, and yet we still have quite a high prevalence of Omicron subvariant infection in the country, so it's still a problem for us.
Giles Duffy should have been invited for a booster due to an underlying health condition, but says he had to book his own after hearing nothing.
Some people, we've got some apathy about, it's been going on for 3 years now. Do I really need another booster? Is COVID really an issue? But for me personally, I wanted my booster, so why didn't I get a reminder?
The booster jabs are only available on the NHS until the end of the month. So if you think you're eligible, it's time to book now. Layla Hayes, BBC News.
Well, joining me now is Dr. Oge Ilozwe, a GP in East London and a senior clinical advisor to the COVID-19 vaccination programme. Remind us, first of all, who is eligible for this booster?
Hello, thank you so much for having me. So I'm a GP in North London, actually, but that's fine. But I've been with the vaccination program for the last 2 years. So the Joint Committee for Vaccination and Immunisation recommended a narrower group of people. So these are those over the age of 75 years old, and those who are severely immunosuppressed, whether by medication or by a condition, and those who are residents in older age care homes.
Now, many people, frankly, are keen to move on from this whole COVID episode. They're putting it behind them. But tell people why they should perhaps get this booster. How will it help them?
So really important to get the booster if you're eligible, because we know that sometimes the protection from the vaccine does reduce over time. And some people say they may have had 3, 4, 5 jabs before if they were eligible last spring. So they may think that they're still protected, but we know that protection reduces over time, especially in those more susceptible. Hence why we'll encourage those who are eligible to come forward and get their jab.
Something that does keep coming up, though, is the guidance around what happens if you do get COVID now. Should we be isolating, and perhaps for how long?
Yeah, so the guidance, people aren't routinely or universally tested anymore. But if you do happen to have a test and you do test positive, we've just had some team members. It may be different for healthcare workers versus the general public. But the idea is that you should stay at home until you feel better, definitely speaking. And if you can retest to check you're negative again, great. But universal testing isn't available. So there isn't any clear stipulations in that direction.
And people still have a few weeks to get an appointment. Are they freely available for people now, or is there some backlog?
So there's plenty of availability in London, lots of appointments across hundreds of sites across the capital. Easiest way is to go on the NHS website to look to book the vaccine, or you can call 119, or the NHS app allows you to book an appointment too.
Okay, good advice. Dr. Oge Ilozwe, thank you very much for joining us on the programme.
Thank you.
Well, let's take a look now at some of the day's other news in brief. The Met Police says it'll apologise to those wrongly arrested during the coronation if it's found that officers made mistakes. Assistant Commissioner Louisa Rolfe today told the London Assembly that the force took a more cautious approach by having a lower threshold for allowing protests on the day. A review is being carried out on the large-scale security operation. A man from Maidstone who downloaded hundreds of videos and pictures of child sex abuse has been jailed. John Patterson stored images of children as young as 6 months old. He was released from prison in 2019 after serving 18 years behind bars for murder. Summer events scheduled to take place at Brockwell Park were given the go-ahead by Lambeth Council last night. Some locals had voiced concerns over potential damage to the environment, but the council say events such as the upcoming Lambeth Country Show will be of benefit to the area. Now it's a big night for West Ham as they take on Fiorentina in their first European final in over 40 years in the Czech Republic. Thousands of fans have made the journey over to Prague to watch the match, and many more are gathering back here at the Queen Elizabeth Olympic Park, where a special fan zone has been opened just for tonight. And that's where we join our reporter, Paul Murphy-Casp now. The atmosphere must be building nicely there, Paul.
Well, welcome to the Queen Elizabeth Olympic Park. I mean, the noise speaks for itself. The fans are definitely getting ready for tonight's game. I must say, it is my first time in the Olympic Park, and what a night to be here. You know, the fan zone here is rammed. There's flags, there's face painting, and there's even girls on stilts over there waving flags and aiding in the chanting. So it's very much a party atmosphere here this evening, and obviously a sea as usual of claret and blue shirts. Now, West Ham, you know, their Premier League season hasn't necessarily been the best, but their European season has been amazing. And tonight they take on Fiorentina in the Europa Conference final in Prague. I've been speaking to some fans both here in London and in Prague about how they feel about tonight's game.
It's been incredible to be here in Prague ahead of the Europa Conference League final. There's been so many West Ham fans out here, thousands of fans. It's been a real celebration of our Conference League campaign so far. There's a lot more excitement now, and I'm sure it will turn to nerves as we get a little bit closer to kick off, but that can only be a good thing because it means so much to us West Ham fans to win our first major trophy since 1980.
Oh, it's amazing. Tell you what, 47 years we've been waiting for this, and it's going to happen tonight, 100%. 100%.
I'm very hopeful. I've never been here, so I'm happy for it, mate. European final, beautiful.
I know we was in Europa last season and knocked out in the semis, but now we've got to the final of this one. It's a trophy at the end of the day, and it gets into Europa next season, so it'll be great. It'll be really good.
I would be just so happy, honestly, just absolutely just so happy. I will actually cry. Yeah. I know I will. I will cry. It's just unbelievable, emotional to watch it with my son. Right, 20 years old. Last time we won something was 47 years. I was 9. And to watch it, it'd be unbelievable. You know what I mean? Saying to take to your grave.
Well, what's better than hearing from a few West Ham fans, but you can hear from even more West Ham fans. I'm joined by 6 young men, all amazingly ardent West Ham fans. I'll start with Mark. How are you feeling about tonight's game?
Excited ever since midday today. Not been able to concentrate on work, just looking forward to this.
And what would it mean if West Ham were to win?
Oh, it's massive. I mean, it's a huge deal for us. As you were saying, Premier League was pretty poor, but this is huge. We get back into Europe next season as well if we win this.
Not just good for the team, but good for the fans.
Oh, yeah. We can see the atmosphere. It's just great to be here. Couldn't make it to Prague. It's probably the next best thing.
And the weather turned out nice as well, didn't it? We're also joined by The Start, who are all West Ham fans. It's a band, like I say, ardent fans. Steve,
yes.
How do you feel about tonight's game?
So excited. This is like Prague 2. If you can't make Prague, come here. It's Prague 2. It's going to be absolutely amazing. Fans are just so energised. We're having a fantastic gig. We cannot wait. And bring that trophy home tonight. It's been a long wait. Bring that trophy home.
And you've turned it into a real party. I mean, you're all performing as well.
That's what we do. We just have one big party. That's what West Ham do.
What song gets everyone going the most?
There's loads of stuff, but Freed from Desire, Tom Hark, all these really, really great tracks. Bit of Sweet Caroline, they'll love it. They'll be all over it. Come and join us. And a bit of Bubbles. We could do with some BBC on Bubbles in about 20 minutes' time.
Who doesn't love a bit of Bubbles? I'm going to ask you all this question now, and I want your first thing that comes into your head. What's the final score going to be?
2-1. West Ham.
3-1 West Ham.
Yeah, 3-1.
4-0.
1-0.
Well, quite a variety of scores there, but don't forget you can listen to the game. If you can't come down here, well, it's actually pretty packed out, so I don't think you'll be able to get in. It's sold out. So the best way to listen to the game is on BBC Radio 5 Live, on BBC Radio London, and on the BBC Sport app. Miranda.
Paul, thank you, and the very best of luck to the fans there. Well, tonight BBC London and South East Today have joined forces owing to strike action by members of the National Union of Journalists. The 48-hour walkout is in protest at cuts to BBC local radio, which will see some programming shared with neighbouring stations. The BBC says core services will be protected and it's investing more money into growing its local digital offering.
Fundamentally, what we need to do is remain relevant for all licence fee payers, and the only way we're going to do that in the future is to be available consistently on all of the platforms, on local radio, regional television news and online. And we can't do that unless we move some of our budget from local radio and regional television and into digital platforms.
We think that it can be done in a different way. It shouldn't be a case of cutting radio programmes in order to pay for digital. You can use your existing staff in a very different way in order to get the best out of them. Better training, for example, better equipment to enable us to do more digital. I just think it can be done in a different way. Cutting one thing in order to pay for the other is not the answer.
Well, lots more still to come, including we meet the rising boxing star Sonny Edwards and his promoter Eddie Hearn ahead of his fight at Wembley on Saturday. Now, reducing the carbon footprint of air travel is a real challenge for the experts. But today, in the skies above Brighton, a new milestone was reached. It was only a single plane, but it was the first air display in the UK of one that is entirely powered by electricity. Our environment correspondent Yvette Austin was there to watch it.
This is now officially the first air display in UK history to have zero emissions.
The power of electricity on show above Brighton. All charged up, it took off from Shoreham Airport for a unique display.
It is very special. It is an absolute pioneer. The term is overused, frankly. This is the first aircraft in the world to have been type rated to be available to the public and to be flying day in, day out, performing training and other sorties in the world. It is the world's first real proper electric aircraft.
Built in Slovenia, the Velis Electro has propellers, but from the ground the absence of engine noise is noticeable. It was an impressively quiet display. Of course, there are no fuel tanks on board, just a battery. But the plane does have its limitations. It's small, only room for a pilot and one passenger, and there's only enough power to fly for about 40 minutes. But it is a start. Today's audience were visitors to a conference exploring how carbon emissions can be reduced to reach net zero in the property world.
It's really at the forefront in terms of technology, and actually the aeroplane in a sense is quite relevant because it's the discovery of the new. This show is all about discovery of the new, and having an electric aeroplane flying in from Shoreham is just perfect. It's like the icing on the cake.
The aim is to have charging points in airports across the UK, powered by solar electricity, and the planes themselves to be used for training pilots of the future.
We had a lot of COOs of companies that have given up flying because it doesn't fit with the ethos of their company, that are green companies, and younger people who would very much like to learn to fly, but they're aware of their carbon footprint. And sustainable aviation needs to be looked at, and we're at the beginning of a journey which we can offer those first steps.
It's unlikely electricity will be used in the future to power large passenger planes. That's expected to be hydrogen, but it is being seen as a step on the road to cleaner skies.
Yvette Austin reporting there. Now, a multi-million-pound restoration project has been completed at Sheerness Dockyard Church on the Isle of Sheppey, more than 20 years after a fire destroyed the building. It's been transformed into a space designed to help the local community, as Peter Whittlesey reports.
For more than a century, it was the heart of a thriving Royal Naval base, and these brothers remember singing in the choir at Sheerness's Dockyard Church.
To recall it in its original state, with all the gold leaf and all the colours, and full with all the military and the bands, and yes, it was an amazing thing to experience as a young child.
Fantastic experience of when you had 200 or 300 army officers and people in the church at big occasions, and so yeah, the memories of this building and the echo, the sounding of it was fantastic.
Many thought all that history was lost forever when the Dockyard Church was devastated by fire in 2001. But then a preservation trust was set up, funding was secured, and now, more than 20 years on, the building has been restored.
Because the journey has been a long one, and sometimes, you know, we doubted whether we'd ever get to this point. But to be in this space with the light flooding in through the windows, all set up to be this enterprise centre to inject energy and excitement into Sheerness, it's absolutely wonderful and incredibly satisfying.
The Preservation Trust knew it would never secure lottery funding unless the church could have a practical use. That's why it's now a community space. But the Trust was determined to save a local landmark.
On the outside, our philosophy was to totally restore the church back to its original date of construction, 1828. And then on the inside, the idea was conserve everything that we found, and then when we needed new parts, to build them in a kind of new idiom, in essence.
And the brothers approve of what has been achieved.
Heart was taken out of it, but they've tried to put that back in the way that they've built it.
It complements the building now.
Yeah.
And has secured a local landmark for the future.
Peter Whittlesey reporting there. Now, Sonny Edwards is a rising star in the boxing world. He's just signed with promoter Eddie Hearn, and I had a chance to meet the pair ahead of their fight on Saturday at Wembley. First of all, big fight Saturday night. How are you feeling?
Yeah, feeling really good. Obviously, we're only a few days away now. Fight night's the best night. Fight week's the best week of the year. I said it the other day. It's better than my birthday. It's better than Christmas. It's when you really get to enjoy the fruits of your labour and then have that bit of freedom to be a normal human being, I guess, for a couple of weeks after before it all starts going back in again. So I'm just buzzing to be here on a massive platform, the world's biggest promoter by my side, and believing in me and pushing in me. Yeah, I'm blessed, to be honest.
You're a South London boy, you're fighting at Wembley Arena. What's that going to be like?
Yeah, and I've my career's been a bit of an awkward one sometimes. You know, lockdown came in when I fought for my world title, so I won a world title in front of 25 people, you know what I mean? So I'm really looking forward to where I was born and raised, bringing world title, world championship boxing back here, and hopefully this is the first of many big events. The UK boxing fans are some of the best in the world. They're so passionate, whether they like you or dislike you, they feel a lot and they let you know how they feel. So yeah, bringing the big events to, you know, one of the best cities in the world, where I'm from as well, grew up, Croydon lad, South London. It means a lot to me.
Eddie, you're a well-known name in the boxing world. Why have you got involved with Sonny?
Well, you know, I've told the story now. He doesn't like the story too much, but
something different.
He's very vocal on social media, and I never used to agree with everything he used to say on social media, and I wasn't his biggest fan. And I watched him fight for the world title, and I was secretly thinking, I hope he gets beat, this kid. And he was unbelievable. I mean, he beat one of the best fighters in the division. The other guy didn't win a round. It was almost embarrassing. And I thought to myself, oh no, if you can't beat him, we better sign him. So we had a little bit of an argument. We met up, and I found out very quickly that actually, away from the social media, he's very bright, he's a great talent, and he's an extremely hard worker. And I believe that he could be Britain's best pound-for-pound fighter. He also has no fear in going in with every other champion in the division. And in a sport that's notoriously hard to make the big fights, it's so refreshing where you've got a young fighter that goes, yep, I'll fight him, yep, I'll fight him, London, Vegas, wherever it's going to be, no problem. And Saturday's a big night for him. He's fighting another undefeated fighter, but you could be looking at something very special here, and I can't wait to see him fight on Saturday.
Well, let's talk about your opponent, Chilean Andre Campos, 26 years old, a year younger than you. He's undefeated, and he's very confident. He wants to win.
Yeah, I mean, look, Sonny's got his own opinions of him, which is he's levels below me and I'm going to destroy him and all of those things. I think you should think that way. For me, this is a fighter that has his country on his shoulders. He's come with a huge amount of profile and publicity to become Chile's first boxing world champion. So you know what kind of hunger he's got. But, Sonny, you tell, according to you, this is only going one way, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, I've got 2 world champions in my family, so there ain't no one from a country that's never had a champion going to beat me. I genuinely think I'm one of the best fighters in the world outside of Britain. I think in the next few years I'll really prove that. And the opportunity to do so is more important to me than anything else. I genuinely want all the big fights, and Campos is getting in my way. This belt here, I have to defend it, rent's due every single time I get in the ring. It's too much riding it. I've got my 4-year-old son who's going to be coming and joining me and watching me fight live for the first time ever. I mean, he's seen me in the ring, he knows what I do, but I'm going to try and get him on the ring walk with me, and I just give him that memory, and this is what my dad does, and this is who my dad is. I mean,
Eddie, final word, what can fans expect on Saturday night?
Fans can expect to watch one of the best fighters in British boxing, someone that could go and win it all. Entertaining, tricky, slick, a character as well, and out to show the world how great he is.
Good luck to him now. The comedian, writer and director Ben Elton is making his stage acting debut as the rebel leader in the hit musical We Will Rock You at the London Coliseum. The actor wrote the show, which he's directed for the past 21 years. But he's told Michael Mackenzie that he'll now take the lead for the first time.
The award-winning comedian's career has spanned over 40 years, but now Ben Elton will tread the boards for the first time at age 64 in his production, We Will Rock You.
So Ben, you've written and directed this production, now you're actually starring in it.
It's been one of the great privileges and joys of my career to be able to work with the music of Queen, and more than that, to work with Queen themselves over many, many years, decades now.
And Ben, you're making your stage debut in this production. What's that like?
I've been in amateur musicals when I was a kid, but this is my stage debut. professionally. Last time I sang on stage was Consider Yourself in an amateur production of Oliver in 1973. So, yeah, it's been quite humbling in a way to be amongst such brilliant talents, but also hugely exhilarating. And when the audiences leap to their feet and you see 4 full tiers, we are the champions, well, it's a very special moment.
And then, Ben, what are you hoping an audience will take away from coming to see this production?
Those who loved it once before when we ran 12 years in London will love it again. It's the same show, but actually it's also taken a step up. There's new jokes, there's some new music in it, or obviously Queen hits, and it's got a couple of extra ideas in it. So it's all the same and all new.
We Will Rock You is on until the 27th of August. Michael Mackenzie, BBC London.
Well, time now for a look at the weather with Nina, and news today of a heat health alert being issued for parts of our region.
Yes, that's right. Nothing too extreme, just an indication that this weekend we're expecting our first summer warmth with temperatures in the mid-20s. Now, for some of us, good news, I think, if you've been across parts of the east, stuck underneath the cloud with the strong winds. Temperatures today have just been around about 14 to 15 degrees. But for most of us, after a rather cloudy start, it did brighten up. And in the sunshine, today we saw top temperatures of 21. Now, as far as the outlook is concerned, we have got another day of very settled weather, a similar pattern to what we've had throughout much of this week. But we're then going to start to see some changes as it turns warmer, but potentially seeing some showers around as well. The reason for the change is the high pressure is going to drift across towards Scandinavia. This allows low pressure to move in from the southwest. A change in wind direction, we're dragging up that warmth and humidity from the south. The showers will be a little hit and miss, mainly across southwestern areas, but it's certainly something to watch out for. Dry overnight tonight though, as that northeasterly wind drags the cloud back in across inland areas. So we'll see temperatures by the time we get to tomorrow morning sitting at around 7 to 9 degrees. So it may be a little cloudy first thing tomorrow morning, but just like the last few days, we'll gradually see things brightening up with some spells of sunshine from mid-morning through to the afternoon. It is always across eastern areas where we're potentially likely to hold on to some cloud, but I think tomorrow much of that should clear. But with the wind, temperatures at around 15 to 16 degrees, similar temperatures to what we've had today, elsewhere at around 19 to 21. Signs of that change then as we go through Thursday night and into Friday morning, because not as much cloud around, clearer spells and temperatures maybe a degree or so higher at 9 to 10 degrees. Friday is expected to be dry with long spells of sunshine, and already we're picking those temperatures up. Things will be feeling warmer. We're looking at highs around about 24 degrees across London. I think parts of East Kent will see highs of 17 to 18. That low pressure system, as I mentioned, starts to bring in the showers as we go through the weekend. If we do get some downpours, they could be heavy and thundery, but in between any showers, it still, for some of us, will stay dry and bright. So for all of us, warmer, turning more humid through the weekend. The showers, we'll just need to keep an eye on the detailed forecast. Some of them potentially could be heavy and thundery, but other places will stay dry with some sunshine. That's your weather. Back to you.
Thanks, Nina. A reminder now of today's main headlines. Prince Harry has today told the High Court in London that phone hacking was carried out on an industrial scale across the British press, who then destroyed the evidence. President Vladimir Putin says Ukraine is responsible for destroying the southern Kakhovka Dam, which has left hundreds of thousands of people without water or electricity. Water is continuing to surge through a rupture in a dam in southern Ukraine, inundating towns and villages downriver. The Prime Minister has arrived in Washington, where he'll meet President Biden, as well as members of Congress and business leaders to forge stronger economic ties. He also laid a wreath at the Tomb of the Unknown Soldier at Arlington National Cemetery. The NHS is urging more people to get their spring COVID booster jab before the deadline at the end of the month. NHS England believes that more than 800,000 people could still come forward for the booster. Well, that's about it from me. Plenty more, as always, online and on the BBC News app. I'll be here later with our 10:30 bulletin, but for now, have a very good evening.
My daughter has a rare neuromuscular disorder.